Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of Erotic Wisdom, the fascinating wonderment to be living in a body. I am Mrs. Love, your host, and today we're recording live from Cape Town, from the gorgeous home of my beloved friend and mentor and teacher, Swami Rahasya Advait. It's a mouthful.
No, it's not like that. It's the name Osho gave me.
It's a name that Osho he's just a human being. He's a beautiful human being with a very rich name. And it's Rahasya is the founder of the Advait Tantra School of South Africa, of which I am affiliated, and from which I also have learned a lot of my ways of presenting the work and understanding eroticism in the context of the teaching of Tantrism. This also is a mouthful. Maybe we can use this time with Rahasya to unpack this a little bit. What is the connection and the wisdom of the eros in the understanding of the Tantric philosophy? And I just want to also mention that Rahasya wrote a brilliant book. We're going to go back to it perhaps at the end of the podcast, but in case we get lost in conversation, I don't want to miss mentioning. It's called the Rocky Horror Tantra book, and it's a horror book. And I just want to read you a little bit of the introduction on the back cover, because I found it so descriptive of the way Rahasya teaches Tantra. It says, Tantra is the roughest, rockiest, and unquestionably the most horrible of spiritual paths. It is not a journey for the faint-hearted, the weak-minded, or the emotionally troubled. It presents serious difficulties even to the heroic. It is as harsh as the truths of lives themselves. Just reading about it, though, it's probably not all that dangerous. So even if you're listening, you can put on your seatbelt and sit tight. So how I want to introduce Rahasya is that he's a Swami, but he's not wearing white garment. He's not celibate. And he's not walking the renunciant path. So he's a smoker, he's a drinker, he's a lover of life. He loves people and conversation. And so for me, he's...
I've been all those things along the way.
Yeah?
I've been all those things along the way.
Yes.
And more. But sure.
But I like this about you, Rahasya, is that you represent all the unexpected. When people think of spiritual teacher, they have so many projection onto them that they must be the embodied perfection walking on the planet.
That's why I do my very best to break what you could call the symbols.
Exactly. The symbols. And you do it so well.
If you want me to do something, you just tell me. No enlightened man will ever do that. I'll probably do it tomorrow afternoon.
I'll help you. I'll help you with your projection, to break your projection. So Rahasya is that. He's really real. It is in the real world, and he's meeting the real in his way. And so it's really good at breaking projection of perfection, because the teaching of Tantra actually are about meeting life as is, not as we would like it to be, but to really see what is there. And so I just want to say this as a disclaimer on my part, because every time I have a conversation with Rahasya, I notice that the best question arrived to me the day after or 2 days after. And it's like, oh, only now I actually understand when he said that, what he actually meant. Oh, I should have asked him. And so if this come, I promise you all, we can have him again on the show and ask him all the questions that arise later. And so I hope I can keep up with him today.
But when that happens, that's
Yeah.
not an era of things.
No. It's just what I want to...
That just means you hearing me a little deeper later on.
Exactly. That's what I want to say. All of this was to introduce you as my teacher. You've been saying the same things to me for about 10 years. And many of them, I only understand them now. It's like it took me 10 years. He always said the same thing. So its teaching goes really, really deep and also takes the body a moment to adjust, because sometimes when I hear you speaking, I notice my mind has the immediate reaction when the teaching are so deep and they break all the symbol. My mind still is attached to some symbols. And so in the moment, I don't really receive you. But then when I go home and I relax and I lower the resistance, there it comes. The real message, the teaching, enter the texture of the body. And it's beautiful. This is my relationship with you, Rahasya.
I like you call it beautiful. I think of it as sneaky.
You think of it sneaky? It sneak onto me while I'm sleeping.
I know when I'm saying things to you that you're not getting now, and a little bit later.
Yeah. So that's that. So it's a little bit of an introduction to everybody that is listening, to maybe listen to it again and again, and maybe the second, third time we'll all catch up with you, Rahasya. And I want to suggest the book is available online. The Rocky Horror Tantra book is available on Amazon. And so do your little research. I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful erotic book. And Rahasya tells an erotic story and then it gives you the tantric explanation of it. And but before I diverge, I wanted to introduce you, and we thought that maybe you could share with us the Tantric Apologia. You want to explain what is an apologia as well?
Well, okay, first off, it's not an apology. Apologia. You can kind of Google it and get an idea of it. It's back in the days of the early Christians, when they had a new thing that the world around them, they had gods and demigods and so on, and the Christians were trying to introduce a new one and get less persecuted for their views. And it's not so much an apology as saying, I believe different from you, here's why, and maybe even here's why you should allow me to believe different from you and where it's not a threat to you. That's really what an apology is about. And I think a lot of people, I see a lot of fear-inspired commentary around Tantra.
Yes.
Look, all religions have got their little bit of, dark side. They're embarrassing. Oops. Sorry about supporting the Holocaust. Oops. Sorry about giving a theological basis for apartheid. Oops. Or, And Tantrikas, we've got a few things to answer for. Most of them no one will ever know about, so we can just keep quiet about it. But
yes, the secret teaching. Let's keep them secret.
As there. We've all got our bits and pieces, so sure, we probably do have a couple of things to apologize for as well. That's a thought. Mm-hmm. But, yes. So, by way of just explaining to people, because, especially people who hear the word Tantra and who are a bit like the modern polices of the internet and the limiters of who you get to see on YouTube and all that, and the corporate firewalls and all that thing. And there's a sex word involved somewhere here, horrors, and retreat from it. Or it's a club of libertines. Oh my God! Well, just kind of get out their way and try and stay safe, and warn your daughters, etc. And I'm not saying there isn't a little bit of that around Tantra every now and again, and I'm not saying it can't look that way. Sure. I like the analogy of martial arts because people are less, weirdly enough, less reactive about violence than they are about sexuality.
Yeah, interesting. Huh?
But neither is really much accepted in public. Both have definite limits in the culture. Both have laws and things around them. You know, if you hit someone, that's assault. It's a crime. You do it too often, you're going to go to jail as a regular offender of that. We take it quite seriously in the culture. Yet, in martial arts classes, to get into this Apologia really and draw a straight up analogy here, Tantra and martial arts, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm doing. So the analogy goes thus. Martial arts, you really do hit people. I hate to tell you this, but, you know, at a certain grade level, you hit people. At a high grade level, boy, oh boy, you get hit and people hit you and you hit like a truck.
And people get even killed
On
a high level.
If you're not really physically ready and trained for a high level grading in martial arts, let's say something like Taekwondo, 4th Dan. A friend of mine did that. You will die. In fact, a friend of mine did that particular grading. His wife saw him after the grading, after something like a dozen hours of most of it having the hell beaten out of his body. I mean, kicked to pieces. And taking it, he's that strong, he's that tough. That's why he's a 4th Dan Taekwondoka, you know. And she saw him after the grading, and she's a doctor with emergency room experience. So she said she's seen people die of a lot less bruising than that, you know, after a car crash or something. So martial artists, and there's a thing that, within martial arts, take your friendly local karate club school, learn a little bit of defense technique and so on. Yes, that's martial arts. However, there are martial artists who will risk their lives for a grading. And that may seem crazy to most, etc., but the culture does find a way to tolerate them doing it.
Yeah.
Partly, they do it in their own schools. It's not televised, generally.
Yeah.
You know, competition maybe, but that's part of martial arts too. Now, I'm not going on the level of saying I want tantrikas to be able to televise our sessions and, you know, do open commentary on things like that.
Sex
competition. We don't want to enter anything in the Olympics here. The Taoists would be more into that, but we beat them. No, not going that way. We don't want that kind of acceptance that martial arts has. But just the acceptance that a martial arts school can happen, that people hit each other in it. Nobody's going to court out of that or calling it an issue. And nobody's, how to say, if there's rumors about it, some martial arts school is also doing a little sideline in protection racketeering or something. That would be very naughty in terms of the ways and ethics of martial arts schools. And I think in the culture we'd expect some martial arts schools to take enough of an issue with that martial arts school that the issue's all going to go away. I think we'd like that as the way it gets handled. And likewise with Tantra. Occasionally there may be someone that maybe is, you could say, pushing the boundaries, naughty Tantrika. You know, like a martial arts school giving kids techniques that are sort of really inappropriate for child-level self-defense at school. You know?
Yeah.
And suddenly kids at school start losing eyes and, you know, start going down with broken tracheas and, you know, all sorts of horrors like that, you know.
And there's also the other side where the martial artist could be trained to protect the nation, protect the good and welfare. So, and I think with sexuality and tantrism, we can say the same things, that some of us becomes really good in what they do, and there is a benefit in the community at large. They can contribute. Like the martial artist, you know?
It's like you know, the way of the school is not that I've got some teaching and then I teach you and then you take my teaching, and then no. The way my teaching works is I help you find what your expression is. And when I met you, you're already fully on your expression. It's not an issue, it's your expression. And my work is just encouraging that. So like Shakti, who we both knew and loved very much, she made a teaching that was relevant to women, just really pretty much all women. And that's unusual for Tantra because a bit like martial arts, the teachings are usually only relevant for those who are actually using this violence in their training and in their exercise and their competition on a kind of a daily basis.
Yeah.
You know, but she was teaching lessons which are good for all women. You know, that's like martial artists teaching good general awareness. Or that lovely Aikido master who said, "My finest weapon is my smile."
I love that. Yeah, that
giving people a little bit of a hint of what's the essence of this.
Yeah. And that applies to everybody. You don't need to go all the way into the practice to benefit from this.
Well, it's just that we're a specialist area. Whatever we say about who comes to us and so on and so forth and so, you know, how we manage that, every specialist area has got that. Every specialist area becomes its own language pretty quick. And its own practices and so on. And many specialist areas do things or have things going that would be troubling or dangerous or stupid for the general culture to use. Martial arts has that. And say studying chemistry has that. You know, you may have little things in your own little private collection of stuff you experiment with in your own little private lab that, no, you can't have citizens possessing these things. You know, you might have deadly poisons. You know, as tantrikas, we've got horrendous capabilities. You know, just as a martial artist has the capacity to beat the hell out of you. If a tantrika wants to addict you, you're in trouble. You know, if we step over to the dark side, ooh. But in our terms, why, you know, dark side, light side's a whole nother conversation.
We'll do another podcast on that one.
Right.
What is dark?
But let's stick with the analogy of a martial arts school. We really fit that very closely.
Yeah.
You know, some people go to a martial arts school to learn how to be police, thugs, and muggers. They do. And some people go to, and hopefully the martial arts school teaches them not to really be bullies, thugs, or muggers, or to be very good ones.
Yeah.
So at least nobody gets hurt when they mug people and things. Good, be good at it, you know. I've been robbed by good criminals and bad criminals. I prefer good criminals any day.
I love this. Because, I mean, Tantra also teach you to break the rule and drop out of the masses movement. And so...
Martial arts teaches you to break the normal rules.
And to do it skillfully, To do it skillfully, it's a good talent to have.
And like martial arts, there's many, many schools out there that are teaching nonsense. There's people who've come up with their own funky fusion of some kind of dance or exercise form and something from traditional martial arts. And they're ignoring all the basic training and muscle work and development that goes into making legs strong before you do this or before you do that. So they're injuring their students and so on and so on. And we see a similar thing going on all over the Tantra world. You know, people who know a bit or think they know a bit or who've mistaking an awakening for enlightenment and whatever. And they teach prematurely, and they teach from the strangest perspectives, and they come up with the weirdest things, but it's kind of all good to an extent. Like, it's all good in the martial arts world, that, you know. If your neighborhood karate school's quality is not so great, well... And over time, martial arts has been in the West kind of in a zone of acceptance anyway. It's been around longer. And nowadays it's not that hard to look around and see who's who in the zoo and go, okay, this school has, you know, years of practice, great reputation, stars, great competitors, etc. I'll go and train with them. And you can't really do that in the Tantra world yet, I don't think. But it's sort of happening.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. In this analogy, I feel that the martial arts are still quite honored, even if people don't understand them really. But you're doing martial art; it's accepted socially. whether Tantrism is still quite a taboo.
Well, if you're doing martial arts, means you're engaging consciously with violence. That's what you're doing. You're learning the arts of engaging with the body in violence. Tantra, one aspect of it is we engage with the body with sex.
Yeah.
We engage with the body, with the mind, with its eroticism. We engage with it as opposed to, most people, violence is a thing you just don't do, and quite rightly so. And most situations, sex is a thing you just don't do. It just depends the situation, etc. For Tantrikas, it's not about, we're much more relaxed about our situations. Often we're more picky. But when we do, we mean it like a martial artist means it. We're there, we're present, we're conscious.
Yeah.
It's a sacred practice for us.
Yeah.
We could say we have lessons on levels from basic exercises, breathing and squeezing and whatever, and building your pubic muscles and blah, 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 through to real extremists and things, martial arts artists, get trucks to drive over their bellies to check that their tummy muscles are tough. They jump off the second story of a building carrying a sack on their back to check that their stance is strong. So we do equally ridiculous stuff.
Yes.
But just in our zone.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful when you said, then when we have sex, we mean it. It's not something that happened to us or the urges of the body, but we mean it. So shall we speak a little bit about this, the function of the eros in the journey to awakening? Why eros?
Okay, enough apologia.
Enough
we'll leave
apologia.
That for now. It's uncomfortable for me anyway. I don't like apologizing. Apologizing. Let's just get to the apologies over quickly.
Okay.
2 things I'd like to apologize for on behalf of the Tantra world. I'm so sorry. The one is, yes, indeed, the cult of Kali Ma. Some departments of it did get a bit out of hand back when in India. Traveling around, strangling, traveling parties, stealing their stuff as a way to fund your temple is now frowned upon in the Tantra world. We promise we don't do that shit anymore. Harrison Ford and, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and those guys. Yeah, the British made big points in India by making a mission of extermination. They mostly got the wrong people, but they did a good enough job. We got the lesson. We're not going there. We don't do that anymore. Okay, sorry about that. The other one we should apologize for. I went looking because I was very annoyed. I was looking for which religion now to blame for apocalyptic legends. No shit, it's us.
The Tantrika?
Yeah, we started that nonsense.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it goes like this. Tantra's all about speed and encouragement and intensity, right? And very powerfully. So now the student in the Hindu milieu, he goes, "Oh, teacher, I don't feel like pushing into those hard lessons. That looks a bit too tough. I think I'll take it on next life." Because there's next life, there's next incarnation, or next year, or next week, or, I want to put that off, basically, or I don't want to face that right now. No. Incarnations are wrapping up. It's the end of times. There's no more incarnations. Last chance, baby. And that, as a device to bully students into making more of an effort, which is a very popular way of getting people to do things in the patriarchal structure of things. I know it's a little weird to you, but, that's the way boys do it. And that approach and that method kind of just got out of hand. Other religions liked it. It's great for social control. They took it on. So, oops, sorry about that too. The perpetual apocalyptic, the perpetual,
So the apocalypse doesn't really...
Yeah, if you're new to apocalyptic legends, it's not now that there's apocalyptic legends about. There have always been and will always be apocalyptic legends.
It's to help you in waking up faster, bottom line.
Not that the occasional apocalypse doesn't happen, but,
Yeah, they do, and maybe they have that function. Okay, good. So you touched something else just now. If you like to speak into that, you can speak into whatever you like, really. Everything is fascinating to me. But you just mentioned mistaking the awakening for enlightenment.
Oh, a common error in the spiritual world. You see it especially all over the Christian world. Is awakening's that point which you will remember well, where the core of your life shifted from spiritual things are a hobby, a pastime, a nice activity, something that rounds my life out or whatever, to it's the center. The pursuit of truth, or the pursuit of this, or the real of love in your case, and so on, that's more important than money, more important than success, reputation, family. Sorry, this is the mission of my life. This is what I'm doing. That's awakening.
Yeah.
Now, as you know, very powerful, very stirring. Now, also very easy in that awakening to assume, and you feel the freedom of it, that this is attainment. This is the spiritual attainment. This is it. And this freedom you're feeling, this is the attainment. And then also can feel the obligation of the bodhisattva of I must help others to this. I must support them to this. And it's not that it's wrong to teach at that point. As Buddha says, if you would really teach it, if you'd really learn a thing, teach it. So it can be useful. I mean, you often see such teachers in the Christian world becoming something after some years, they develop. But they're going off premature, In the East, where there's less of a surprise to the whole enlightenment thing. They kind of get the phenomenon. They have meta descriptions of it. They have an overview on it. They have a view of what immature enlightenment looks like, mature enlightenment looks like, and so on and so on. There's a very different way of assessing things, but the Christian world has this great suspicion of individual experience, and so whenever anyone does have it, it kind of puts them at odds with the whole church, and they almost have to make a schism and a separate sect to declare their own awakening, But it's an awakening. It's the start of their path. They think it's the end of it. But, I mean, and
So
look, for
what
a lot
does
of them,
it
it
do?
is the end of it. It depends their chi. Are they a person here with massive chi that's going to be plowing through, as the Tibetans call it, that they need an enlightenment in one lifetime school, that kind of intensity, or is their chi enough that awakening? That's it for this incarnation. That's plenty. That's a big deal.
And can you culture more chi? When you speak about if there is enough chi, if someone has an awakening, can you culture?
You can, but you've got to be careful of the line I'd call motivation.
Just expand on that, please.
I had a very strong mentor on motivation, very lovely guy. Well, motivation, mind training in general. And he started out as a motivator, but what he said about it years later, he said, if you want to see who someone isn't, motivate them. And what he meant was, you yourself, you can motivate yourself, or you can motivate someone, make a deliberate effort to push them in that way. The moment you slack off the motivation, they're going to revert to their own comfort state of energy. Straight away. They're not going to have momentum. You don't give them momentum. You just move them while you're pushing. You move yourself while you're pushing. Sometimes you need to push.
Wouldn't that create then a momentum that becomes sustainable?
It's difficult to make that discernment yourself, but there's some hints. The when you need to motivate or push or make, you could say make an effort as opposed to yield to the effort that's arising, right? You know all about that. You've been very, very active where you're doing nothing. Yeah, you're letting this arise, particularly when you're teaching and so on. Yeah. Sorry, I'm losing my chain of thought there.
Motivating.
Yeah.
We're speaking motivating, culture and chi.
But so when you need to motivate, that's what I was after. It's about the flow and the drift. So imagine there's the river flowing, but if you examine the river a bit closer, the flow is in the center, or in the midstream. There it's cruising away. Over by the edges of the river, you get what you call the drift. Some places it makes little eddies and whirlpools. Sometimes it even flows back the wrong direction.
Yes.
Etc. If it's a big river, you get that's the drift. Now, if your life is in the quality of flow, if you're lined up with your chi and the arising that is you and so on, and you're putting yourself where the flow of your life is, you may not feel much movement, much speed, but life is bringing you, the typical symptom is life keeps bringing you newish things. If you're in the drift, you tend to see the same things again and again and again. Make the same relationship over and over and over. Or you seem to be literally backtracking your life for a bit and then getting going again and backtracking again.
Yeah, and it feels like you live in...
Now, if you're in the drift, and it's hard to see if you're in the drift, it's hard to really know. This is where teachers are useful, someone else to take over view and maybe give you some hints is useful. It's always easy to see someone else's stuff. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you're in the drift, it's time to kick hard. It's time to motivate. It's time to push. It's, maybe you're feeling all worthless and helpless and it's cycling like this, then do some Louise Hay affirmations and pump yourself up with, oh, hell, go all the way back to Dale Carnegie and wake up every morning and go, boy, am I enthusiastic. Yeah. But whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
So that will push you into the flow.
And then hopefully you find the flow. And then you don't need to do the motivating. You need to yield and submit to the flow.
But
and funny enough, yielding and submitting can sometimes be a good way out of the drift. Particularly a tight spiraling one.
Yes.
And you just yield and submit to it.
Yeah, you
like,
surrender.
Say, a tight argument in a vicious little relationship and it's going round and round and round. Yeah. Just give up.
Yeah.
Can also, just the same as you're caught in a weir in a river, which is part of the drift, and now you give up and it carries you through.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes you into safety. Yeah. So you stop pushing too hard and constantly spinning on yourself. But we were on this speaking about the awakening, which is the beginning of the journey to enlightenment. And do you think that everybody that awakened has a chance to reach self-realization?
No. Well, yes and no.
Yes and no. You said, it depends on the quality of your chi, if you have enough chi. And then we came into this analogy of the river. So you say that when you are in the middle of the river, you're in the flow. Here is where you actually culturing chi. You can...
No, not really. I'm saying you're deliberately motivating. You're deliberately pushing something. You're making deliberate effort. As opposed to yielding to the natural arising within you. I mean, every day, stuff wants to happen. Yeah. And mostly life consists of constraining what wants to happen for what has to happen. Yeah. There's a constraint in that, but there's at some it's a bit of like the shift of life from living in your freedom from things. I would have a positive urge to have a Mercedes. Why? So I'll not look like a failure when I'm driving in the traffic. Okay, you want freedom from not looking like a failure. Perfectly good. Work on it. But if you have your freedom from, in whatever sense that is for you, you can explore your freedom too. And there's an arising urge. Freedom too goes with the flow. Freedom from, it might be the flow. Sometimes, it might be batting you towards the flow.
Yeah, it's still a reaction. Freedom from.
Something that's going to move you and motivate you.
Yeah. Instead of the freedom of to be yourself and feel your arising.
Yes, when fear arises and it motivates you, and then the fear stops, you don't keep on with the same pace of movement. Is my point.
Yeah.
The motivation's over.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of who can make it, who can't, in a sense. Look, I get a lot of criticism because I suggest and my whole teaching is very consciously, very deliberately around those I call, the Tantrikists, the real berserkers of the spiritual world. Not those who need to go at the pace of someone committed, someone solid, the monastic kind of pace. And certainly not the level of people of general interest. Just the same as martial arts again. You could say, I'm a teacher, very postgraduate, very post your fourth dan Taekwondo. After that, you come to me.
Yeah.
And that's where we work.
Yeah.
So I'm working mostly with other teachers.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're quite a dangerous teacher for beginners.
Horrible. I'd never, You don't design a book cover like this.
Yeah.
If you want people to think it's nice, friendly, happy tantra, or even stylish, or even elegant, or even anything.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
that's just raw.
Yeah, it's that's why I read the
literal raw
back of your book, because it's like, and there is also an attraction I notice in this, scaring the people away. You notice that who's got the calling, it's even more called by this, by this dark
Right, and then
attraction.
they say to me, "You busted! You're using reverse psychology."
Yes, exactly. You do.
But you don't get it. For you, it's reverse psychology because you've got the chi to meet
Yes.
that kind of challenge.
There is an attraction.
Most people trust me, and I mean it with them. No, it's not reverse psychology. It's straight up psychology.
Yeah.
Dangerous. Like if a martial arts teacher is saying to you, "I teach deadly skills," we dabble with them in practice. Heaven forbid, but it's wildly possible someone might get tapped the wrong way.
Yeah.
In class. Don't come to my class unless you're this strong, you've had those gradings, etc. And if you haven't, we're going to be looking, and not at our main lessons, we're going to look and get playing you catch up. Sometimes we'll be teaching you, sometimes we'll be referring you out. That's exactly the way it works with the school. You know, we filter like crazy.
Yeah, definitely. So, I want to ask you if there's anything you want to say about your book. There is a couple of thoughts that arises in me now. Who did you write your book to? Why did you write a book? I mean, what movie? I think your book is a masterpiece.
Like they're saying,
I just want to
sit
say,
down and have an imaginary reader. Like who was
yeah,
that?
who would have been your reader, your ideal reader of your book? Did you have one of those when you write it, or you didn't? It was just
I did that a bit. I was thinking mostly of people that I've seen on groups, people I've had sessions with, the kind of questions they have, the so and so on. There was some of that in the lectures in the book. Because the way this book is just a story, and then I break the story in the middle, and I insert a lecture. And I hope you're not going to, well, you're welcome to just skip ahead and then see how does the story end. But I kind of want to use that little bit of suspense to keep you in there for the lecture. And then at the end of the lecture, we get back to the story.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It's most of them, most chapters are like that.
Yeah, and I think it's brilliant like that because makes it really accessible.
The stories are a mix. Some of them are a very deliberate, like fusion of things that pretty much happened in pretty much the way they happened. Some of the people whose lives I borrowed those bits from, they really recognize themselves in there, but then I can see I've changed it a little. And one or two of the stories were just, they arose and they kind of wanted to get written. And it's nothing, it's that thing of, in some creative endeavors, sometimes things come from outside of you, so to speak. You just allow them to arise and express. And a couple of them had quite a lot of that feeling. And then the one story I afterwards felt, really, that's a bit unrealistic, and took it around to a couple of anthropologists and things at the times I was talking about, and they went, nah, it's plenty realistic, maybe a bit mild.
The patriarchal story you're referring.
Yeah, that was my particular worst. I didn't like writing that.
I also didn't like reading that. It
Sure
was a
didn't.
struggle.
I don't know if we're going to do that.
The story about the first patriarchal, I think it pricked me in many places, was a hard one to read. And yet, yeah, I hold it more vivid inside of me, the teaching of that story and the meaning. It stays there. Yeah. And tell me a little bit, I read this a while back, and you also have a story here where you tell, perhaps it's the last story, this I'm not too sure, where you tell the story of your near-death experience, and it was your moment of self-realization, yeah, when you were very sick.
My last step of normal life.
Yeah.
It really hasn't been normal since then, has it?
So do you want to say something about it? Can I entice you?
If you have a question, ask a question. But I mean,
yeah,
I wrote.
so that was a moment of that you self-realized that you grasp?
In the story, I ended at a certain point, and then I started again the next morning. I write nothing about from when, in normal language and my experience at the time, when I let go into dying. There was stuff between when I let go into dying and that morning. I couldn't really write it. It's just the writing is a process of evoking symbols that then relate to hopefully something. And I've talked a little bit here and there occasionally when something seems to be particularly appropriate to someone in some context or something, about that gap, moments in that gap, or the moment of that gap. Or that's where it gets all tricky, because language is pretty useless in its descriptives of that space, those spaces.
So we're just gonna leave it as the gap.
Probably. I don't like anyone to take that stuff seriously. It's not an essential claim of my teaching. All I've ever claimed in my teaching is I'm a little bit capable in terms of being aware and conscious with some exercises. I can help you with them if you like, kind of thing. That's the basis.
So why do you teach? What moves you to teach?
You know.
Come. Don't you ever want to stop it all and think just for yourself?
Well, you remember in my book my description of the Bodhisattva, the one who's here for the benefit of all beings, and the Arahat.
Are you one of those?
One who's got his own realizations and goes, well, I got mine, you get yours, good luck to you, China. Like that kind of attitude thing. Well, I had to confess this, but I was initially of the arahatish kind of inclination. A bit. No, I mean, I wasn't ungrateful. There wasn't that, but but I don't think it's intrinsically ungrateful. The Bodhidharma hated the man. He said it's not a sin to kill one. If you've got that prize, you give. You don't go take it and go lacquer for me.
Is this what you feel? Like that if you have the peace for self-realization, you must stay.
If you go to the old texts, the sort of the general view out there in the old texts is you're either the one or the other.
You're either
when
the
you
one.
come out of such a death or such an experience,
the gap.
You're either one or the other.
Either you go for yourself or you stay for everybody else.
Kind of like that, You've got yours, you don't have to incarnate again, etc., etc., would be the Hindu description of it. So you're free, you're off the wheel of life would be the Buddhist version.
Yeah.
Off
you go.
Major schools of Buddhism, the getting to be the Arahat is the whole point. It's not about being a bodhisattva. It's like everyone in his own little boat. Let's get there.
Yeah.
The bodhisattva view is let me make a big boat, let me help many.
Yeah.
Anyway, the way it works out, I clearly wasn't one because, anyway, the challenge of my name, thank you, dear Asha, the adviter of it. What do you think I get to have one end? Please notice, Bodhisattva and Arahat, even though I haven't found this in the literature, maybe some bright scholar can find something interesting there, but I haven't managed to find anything. I've always found this view of you're the one or the other, that's it. Not, these are polarities, susceptible of integration, right? That's my experience. I would say I started out with consciously more of the Arahat flavor, but not particularly, I didn't feel a division in it.
The Arahat is the one that self-realizes and
that's why I wasn't resistant when, first students appeared and started asking for lessons. And I started to explain the context. I feel I could engage with them, and they said, "Good, yes, that's dead right," and so on we went. And all right, in that little space of which you have a curiosity, there was something of the feeling of a little bit of something, I wouldn't quite almost say contractual, on the level of a request that I agreed to. One little shadow I had after it. I could find, because I couldn't find much in that space. Memory doesn't really function there in a normal way. Was a shadow agreement of you support a few women to their flowering, to their fullness, to their... And I kind of, in a way, didn't know really what that meant. I thought I knew what that meant. But there was a feeling of agreement to it, yeah. And I was looking for them or anything else. But when they appeared, it was kind of recognizing, like, oh, okay, this is what that meant. And so I helped them. And, of course, they went beyond what I'd seen of women in my entire life up to that point. Women of such power are rare. And women who have such power innately and who then come into the fullness of it are rarer still. Women like you. Very rare. And so the way I think of it to myself in my happier moments is that I got fucked by the fine print.
You got fucked by the fine print.
Yeah. The overt agreement was, help a few women to their power. Sure. No big deal. Cool, I'll do that. The fine print is when they're in their power, it's not play power. They're what we in Tantrik zones would call full bikini power. It's a little bit like if a martial artist was said, help a few people, help a few kids to find their strength. And he goes, okay, sure. And the one kid's Alexander the Great, the next one's Napoleon, and the third one's Adolf Hitler. You know what I mean? It's like they're each one's greater, more powerful than the next in whatever sense, and they're each whatever Genghis Khan, whatever. Pick your great warriors, Attila. I like Attila. Anyway, but out of the great, if you now had three of the greatest warriors now in your case, well then guess what? You'd be serving them, right? Well, that's what happens. So, I mean, even in the hierarchy of the patriarchal old systems, you look back at the things. Dakinis supersede gurus. Yeah. I mean, there's one real story of that, I tell you, Greg.
Yeah.
So, in the movement, very similar to what we're doing now with what we call Little Tibet in the Cape, and what you're doing, going out in the world, collecting teachings, bringing them in, that whole vibe that was going on in Tibet. They brought Atisha, and they brought all these guys, and they got a whole Tibetan thing going. So always fetch and teachings, same trip as you did there. So one Dakini went to fetch a guru, and he had his nice ashram and his comfortable teaching and his regular students, and life was good. And life was going very well, and he was really being a good guru, as good gurus do, man, and nobody could fault the guy. He was being a good guru. And she pitches up and she says to him, time to come to Tibet. That's where the teaching's moving to. That's where we're going. But I want to get your teaching or borrow some, your treatises. We've read them, it's cool, but you're coming. And he goes and, excuse me, but who do you think you are? Like, you're very sweet and darling and all wonderful and great and cute and sweet, but forget it. I've got responsibilities here, students here, a teaching here. That's how it's going to be. And she said, really? Is that really how it's going to be? Are you really resisting this? Like, you really got to be kidding me, but you really are? You're not getting this? And he goes, no, I'm not feeling it. He said, well, okay, feel this. He takes a little blade and clips his throat.
Cuts his throat,
kills him on the spot. And if you give credence to these kind of legends, she then captures his essence. She captures his soul. She goes back to Tibet. She goes to a friend of hers who's pregnant. She says, I've got the incarnation for that one. I mean, take it as allegorical, but if you're a guru in the world and the Dakini is telling you to do something, the point of that story is fucking listen. least that's how I read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You better listen, huh?
Yeah, so that's why
Listen
I
to
teach it,
she.
because step by step they told me to. They told me when to, what to. And then they even told me when to stop making a living in the normal world, taking that money from the corporate. Do this now. And every other step. Yeah. So I just keep doing
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I think we can wrap it up here today with this beautiful story. Do we have a name of this incarnation of this story in the legend? The one that she takes the soul of.
Oh, you can Google around. Maybe you'll find it somewhere in some art.
So,
like, I don't remember most of the meals I've read, but that made me what I am.
I know, me
most of the
too.
stories
I'm
I've
like
heard,
that.
the books I've written.
And the story is more beautiful when it's not so intertwined with the naming of the name
That's
as well.
my version, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe Osho told it.
I don't know.
Maybe Osho.
So I just want to encourage everybody that is listening to read your book, the Rocky Horror Tantra book. And what is beautiful that at the end of the book, there are Swami's notes.
Well, for everyone that's listening that feels now more curious, that they'd like to know more about, this practice that has a similar relationship to sex as martial arts has to violence.
Yeah, this is the invitation. And at the end of the book, I love your notes. There are the notes of the Swami, which are direct hands-on topics, contemporary topics.
See, that's for those who get that far and don't need more stories. But, or you could say that's why I ran out of stories, and I thought, okay, now I'm just going to tell you.
Yeah, I think these are like naked gazing, the tantric greeting, and I think they're brilliant for practitioner, for people that takes the practice seriously, they want to get somewhere with it. And I found a tremendous support because they direct is one page each. There is one page on kissing, one page on anal penetration, one page on all the extreme practice.
I try to fill in the bits that other tantra books leave out.
Exactly, that's why I love it.
Replace them. I read all the good tantra books out there. Why not?
Yeah.
But then for the bits you missed and the bits they missed.
Yeah.
Why don't people write about those things?
And
cheerful topics.
It's cheerful topics and makes it very human. And for me, more and more, the journey with Tantra is not to overcome my humanity, but is to fully embrace it. In my humanity is the dissolution that really happened, to find the depth of my texture as a human being. And I just want to tell this story because when I was in India studying the traditional text, and sometimes it's so intense, I had to close the book and close my eyes and really make sense of that intensity I was receiving. And I was finding myself lying in the bed and was putting down a traditional text and picking up Rahasya's book. I was putting down the book with one hand and then picking up Rahasya's book with the other hand because I was in the middle of this erotic story that was actually titillating my body and arousing my sensual eroticism, and was delightfully accompanying my learning, mind and body at the same time. And so I found it quite profound in this, in the humanity, approaching us, our eroticism, and then from there moving into freedom and liberation and the biggest theme of Tantrism. So
that's why I just hate that. I'm not trying to lay out the whole path for people. I'm just trying to fill in the one big bit that I found the most lacking in terms of the literature, the description, and I found the most lacking in terms of the understanding of how it works.
Yeah.
Even some pretty damn good tantrikas for me, they don't get how eroticism works and what it's for.
Yeah.
And that's another topic for another time.
Yeah, that's the topic for the next one. We started this one. So what's eroticism for?
Like martial artists, what's violence for?
Exactly.
It's a deep question for them. It's a deep question for us.
Beautiful. So thank you for all of you that are listening. You can connect with Rahasya directly through Facebook. There is a page called the Advait Tantra School.
That's a group.
It's a group, and you can engage with him or the other student, other teacher. It's quite a dynamic group. Also, there is a website that is the advaittantra.com. And I think here we are. For everybody else that just follow the podcast, please keep connecting on eroticwisdom.com. And with any question you have, with any uplifting criticism, I'm open and available. And we'll chat again in the next time. Cheerios.
Thanks, Valentina.